Hello and welcome to a lightning introduction to Dash. My name is Brian Kafke. I'm a data and AI solutions enabler from Microsoft. And before we start in, I will point out I'm wearing an interesting hat. This hat, and I've worn it a few times now in my videos, came from a few years back. I went to an Internet of Things, IoT terminology workshop at Microsoft before I worked. This is when I was consulting. And it was a lot of fun, and they called this a Mission from Mars thing. And I hate to say it, but the best part was really all the branding stuff we got, because we got free hats, coffee mugs, said Mission from Mars. I don't have that today, but I do still have it. And we got this mission booklet, and the idea was we had to, there was a mission that went to Mars, and we needed to communicate with them, but the only thing that worked was a coffee pot. And so we had to transmit messages to a coffee pot, and I think to get it to turn on its light and stuff like that, and we could somehow communicate that way. And we used Visual Studio, and I think JavaScript, and I want to say I used Python, but I can't remember now what language we used. So I learned some things about IoT, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great workshop, and kind of got exposed to sort of how Microsoft does the training things. It was a lot of fun, and so I'm wearing that hat now. I still have that memory, and I'm, of course, drinking out of my Enterprise Star Trek mug, or really Federation. And, of course, let's see. That's most of my branding. Oh, I'm wearing, of course, my Python shirt. So all set to go. Again, branding covered. All right, so let me jump in a little bit. Spoiler alert, Dash is about dashboards, if you haven't figured that out. And of course, there's Python all around this slide, so hopefully you've also determined that that has something to do with it too. So what we'll talk about first is what is Dash, because it's always good to know what the subject matter is. Why do we care? I always like that, because someone tells you something and you're like, but what do I care about this? I really have no interest in going to that place or whatever it is. So I'm going to say, why do you care? And then installing Dash. It's going to be a very quick. I called it lightning because I'm going to force myself to go quick. I usually like to get in depth, but I make this fast so you can get on with your lunch or wherever you're doing. And we'll talk about real quick. Once you install it, you got to test it, because I found I was installing it wrong and then had problems, and then I had to go back. And so I'm going to go about testing it as well. And I'm not going to get heavily into Dash. So this is not a tutorial about how to use Dash and reactive programming and all that stuff. Hopefully I'll do some of that down the road. And I'm actually thinking a good future video might be deploying Dash applications into Azure. So keep in touch, and if you feel like you're interested in some of those topics, message below, comments, etc. So what is Dash? Dash provides interactive dashboards in Python. So the idea is you're writing Python code, you're doing all this great data analysis, exploratory data analysis, good visuals, using Matplotlib and all these great things, Seaborn, whatever you're using, Plotly, hopefully. So using all this stuff, but wouldn't it be nice if you could turn that into an actual dashboard that your company could use, the executives could use, or researchers, etc. It'd be really neat. You could even stream stuff into it and get visual, constantly updating dashboards, maybe of what sales are doing, or patients checking into a hospital, etc. So the idea of that is, is nice. And you've got Python, right? You're doing all this stuff. So that would be a great thing. And that's how I started with this. I wanted to find out, can we build dashboards with Python? How do we do this? I've used Jupyter. Jupyter is great for that cell-by-cell thing. But how do we build dashboards? And I've seen some things, and I'll mention that about that. But that was really where this started. So I will back up for a minute, because we're talking about Dash, and it's by Plotly, I'll mention. The other options are using Jupyter Lab, which is extending into providing more of these dashboard things, but I didn't have good luck with it. Maybe you will. I also looked a little bit at something called Bokeh, and Bokeh seemed to get the jump on this whole dashboarding thing. Dash is a little bit later, but I like Dash more, and I'll speak a little bit why. But Bokeh is another option you might want to look at. But the idea here is, again, interactive dashboards. It is open source, which I like. It's from Plotly, name you know, love and trust, and I don't work for them, but I do like the Plotly stuff that they've done. And I think the easiest way, when I looked at getting into Python, one of the things I looked at was I really like Shiny. I thought Shiny was a really cool thing. And this basically, Dash is Shiny for Python. You probably shouldn't say it quite like that, conceptually at least, not the way it works exactly, but definitely conceptually it's got the same sort of mindset, and then this idea of a model of reactive programming built around React. All right, so this is in the words of Plotly. So Dash is a productive Python framework for building web applications. I'm a little bit hesitant. Shiny sometimes says web applications, and yes, they are web applications, but they're really targeted towards visualizations and that kind of thing. This is not something where you're going to build another Amazon website or some sort of shopping cart order thing. It's not designed for that. If you want to build really custom interactive transactional web applications, I recommend something like Django or ASP.NET or something like that, but not this. But if you want visualizations dashboards, and think of things like Python goes Tableau, Python goes sort of like Power BI. That's what you're talking about here. Why do we care? Well, first of all, it's a free way to get some amazing dashboards, and I like free, so why not? You know, if you're in a company and you don't have tons of money you like to throw out the window, this is a great way to get some powerful, flexible dashboards, and you're not paying anything. And get the power of Python. Python is a very cool language. It's very powerful. It's got a lot of neat things, and it's interesting when you see these frameworks. You see how they leverage things like just the seamless ability to pull in modules, the decorators, etc. All these nice features really lend themselves to easy use of frameworks like this. So I think it's kind of cool, and Python's a great language for analysis, data visualizations, and machine learning. Very flexible, so I like that as well. And it has an intuitive design. To me, it feels intuitive because I guess React itself is pretty intuitive, and Shiny works off of that as well. So the idea is you make a change to something and it will react on the other side. Your visuals will sense that change, will get an event essentially message saying update, and it will automatically do that. And you code that in. So let me step through this. I'm going to use these links to kind of help me step through. And I'm just going to really, again, this is about installing and just quickly testing it and not really getting into much of the functionality. Maybe I'll mention a couple of words. That's about it. So I'm going to start with the installation, and I'm going to click this link. And we get to the Dash Plotly installation section. And this actually has gotten easier from last time I tried this a while back. So what I need is I want to get this line first. I need 2 lines. I just need to install with pip. So I'm going to do Control-C. And I want to get to the command prompt. You can use PowerShell. I find for some of these types of things, it's easier to just use the command prompt. So if you're on Windows 10, you can just go here and start typing a command, and lo and behold, it pops up here. I keep it on my taskbar anyway, but just for you guys at home, you can see that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just say, okay, I'm here. Now, if you've installed Python, hopefully you've said yes, extend your path statement so that the Python library is visible to your will find it, it can search for it. Otherwise, you'll have to go to wherever Python is installed and run Python there and things to do things. Okay, that said, I'm just going to paste in the pip statement. Now, I've already run this, so it's going to tell me I've already got it, but you can see it's going through here, and theoretically, it's just reinstalled everything. If I go back here now, go over here, it's going to swipe this as well. Go back, I can just bring this back up over here and run that. And now it's installed these 2 pieces. That's the idea of it. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to test, did it work? The other piece is missing. And I was playing around myself and I kept getting errors when I tried to run applications with Dash. So I figured, okay, let me test it a different way. So what we can do is just type in, and let me expand this for you guys. Sorry to make that so tiny. You can say font here, make it a little bit easier. Go to something like 28, even 36. Hopefully it's probably unbelievably bit big, but you get the idea. So now you can see this. That's where we are. Okay. What I want to do now is just to go into the Python shell. Python shell is where you can just literally type Python commands like this, and it just runs them. That's all. So you can actually run Python statements 1 line at a time. If you haven't done that, that's what scripting languages are kind of all about. So what I want to do now is try out the import statement. So I can just say import dash. And if it comes right back without errors, that's a good sign. This was not happening earlier for me, so I got a pretty good feeling now. It didn't complain. I'm probably okay. So I'm going to quit by doing quit. And now I'm outside of the, should quit, yeah. Let's kind of scroll here, clear that so I can go back. And now I've got, hopefully this is working. So what I want to do next is do a quick run of a script. So let me change, I have a place in here, I'm going to say documents, have a Python folder, go there, cd dash, just have a folder for that. And I have one that's dash demo. I got a bunch of scripts here, so ignore those. I may take a look at 1 or 2. I think I'll show you a bit. But what I want to do is I want to just download a very simple script to test out, make sure this is working. So I'm going to go back to my slides here, and here I'm going to go to the getting started piece. And what I want to do is I want to copy this code, so I'm just going to swipe this code just to get this quick application that you can see sort of at the bottom there. And I'm just going to do Control-C, go back to the DOS prompt. And you can use whatever editor you like. I'm going to use VS Code because I think it's pretty cool. VS Code, like Atom and things, when you want to really just work with a text editor and integrate it, like being able to just run the scripts, etc., it's really good. When you want a more wrap around you kind of IDE that's more tightly coupled with things, Visual Studio, PyCharm, those are good. So, but I like code for this kind of thing. Okay, now as you can see, it's already in here with other things I've opened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file. It's already in this folder I was in. So I'm going to say new file, and I'll call it dash test.py, just to see that it works. Enter. And dash test. Now all I have to do is go over here. Oh, did I miss something? Get a lot of complaints in VS Code. It likes to tell you about everything that's going on, but okay. Let me go back here for a minute. Looks like I missed something. Control C. VS Code. Okay. So now I've got my code here, and all I should have to do up here, you just click on these diskettes. That will save the code. So that should be all set to go. All right, so I'm going to go back to my DOS window, and I'm still there, and we should see dash test. So now to run, I'm just going to do Python. Let's see this, sorry. Python, and then it's going to be dash test.py. And hopefully, it will work. Now, one of the things that's interesting, notice it says serving up Flask or serving Flask app. So Flask is a lightweight web application framework. So if you want to build your own web apps and things, custom web apps, you can use Flask. There's a sort of the other extreme opposite of Flask is something called Django, which I haven't done a video. I've done some training on it, and I think it's really cool. What Django is it's sort of everything. It's a very extensive framework that sort of gives you everything, batteries included kind of thing, but it's a lot. Flask is meant to be very lightweight, so it makes sense they would choose Flask as a framework to build Dash on. So you can see here, it's telling us that it's running. So it's actually running a web server. So that's the first thing to understand. But it's a dev web server because we're running it locally. If we were to deploy it to something like Azure or Heroku or one of these other places, we would want to make sure that we were running a full-blown production web server. But for our purposes, we're just doing a dev one. And we need this link, right? We need this thing. So I'm going to do Control-C and copy that. And I'll start up a new window here. And all I got to do is now paste that in. And if all works, it should. Remember, we're running a script, and the script automatically kicked in the web server. And then we can see it worked. It's very simple. So we can do different things. We can expand on things and do all kinds of stuff. It does have the highlights and things that Plotly typically has. But this is an actual web application now, which is really cool. Very simple. There is no real reactiveness in the sense we don't have GUI controls and things that will automatically react to what we're doing and change things, like clicking on a state and it changes to reflect only the numbers for that state, or adapting and things. We're going to take another look at something like that in a minute. But now we know Dash is working. It's all good on our machine. This is strictly on our own machine, and we can play around and develop Dash. And that was the main goal of this particular video. So let me close that. We're back here, and let me Control-C for a minute, break out of that. And let's go back over here for a minute and take a little bit of a look at what Dash test looks like. So we can see, we can do this. I think I can, yeah, a little bit bigger so you guys can see. We can see we've got some import statements, right, all the Dash stuff. What you'll need, usually these are the things you're going to need. There might be some other things, and anything you need, pandas, etc., you'd have to import if you're going to use. So you can see we've got the style sheets. So although Dash tries to sort of insulate you as much as possible from the idea you're building a web app, it is sort of an extrapolation. You're working at a very high level. Underneath the covers, though, it is a web app, and so it has things like CSS and HTML controls and buttons, etc. And that's great. It's useful. But if you're not used to that, you do have to get used to the idea. You are dealing with a web page and that kind of stuff. It's such a high level, though. It does remind me again of Shiny. You really don't have to think much about it. It's more of like an enabler, because you want to change the backgrounds or the fonts and things. You have the ability to do that, but you can take defaults in many cases. So it's with great power comes great responsibility. That's kind of what's going on here. If you don't want any of the programming, you don't want to do this stuff, then you're probably not using Python anyway. But if you were, then Power BI is great, and Tableau and all those other tools are great. But this is meant for more the sort of power user, programmer kind of person, data scientist. All right, so you can see here we have our app layout. And this is very straightforward. Remember I said there's no reaction really going on. It's really just showing us a graph. Plotly's lending us a bit of that interactivity, I believe, but we really haven't set up anything. And this is a good way just to start out testing. And again, this is because we're running it all together, so you put up this if main test, the typical thing you do in Python. But it's pretty cool. I mean, to get this running with so little code, it's not bad. I'm pretty impressed, actually. I love stuff like this, actually, because you're doing so much with so little, and being kind of a lazy programmer, that's what I like. Get a lot for a little bit of code. So you're saying your app layout, you're setting up an object basically here, and you set up what you want to be included. And the only thing you got to be a little careful of, it seems to me, is you've got these, parentheses and braces. Really, I had a lot of trouble with that in Shiny. You got it here a little bit, but I think Python is better at that. I want to experiment around. I haven't had a chance to yet with extracting some of this. If you had a lot of it, could you call out to a Python function separate and make the code a little bit cleaner, easy to use, or better yet, even maybe use like a class that you call out to. I don't know if it can get that sophisticated, but that would be pretty nifty. Anyway, you can see how this works. I have another one here, though, that I did initially, -demo1. And this one's a little bit fancier. This one I found interesting. I just copied this off the internet, and I can't find out where I got it now. So sorry, I'd give you the link. But it was actually off the Plotly's site somewhere I found this. But this one actually starts Flask up directly. It's using some, secret keys, etc. And this stuff, by the way, would be very easy with these apps to reach out to any internet resources. If you're going against Azure SQL DB, you want to use Cosmos DB or anything, you could easily do that. The on-premise, I would feel a bit more challenging because of security issues, but the cloud environments like Azure are designed to allow that kind of securely connecting and using things. So here you can see it's creating a data frame, and then it's reading from a HTTP address. Then it sets up the Dash app and starts it up, and it's kind of running through. And I'm going to do more demos on this, but I just want to kind of give you an idea. So here's your app layout, sets here. So this piece is really straightforward. It's setting up, you can see the drop-down list. It's got a basic graph here, etc. But I find what's really interesting here is this is the part that wasn't in the other app, and it is here, which is you can have this function. So you essentially just write a function that does what you want. What do you want to happen to the visual when what you've created, these controls, change? And what's enabling this to work is this decorator. So the decorators essentially modify functions to extend them with functionality without actually making you change your code. And it's interesting when they use them like this. I find it kind of cool because they're giving you extra functionality, but you don't really have to worry about that. All you worry about is your basic functions here, and it does the rest. So that's kind of a nifty thing, and it's a pretty cool use of that, I think. I like that. You see that in Django as well, and yeah, it's something you don't see much in R, so, so it's kind of a cool thing. All right, so that's basic piece here, and I'm not going to get into the actual mechanics so much, but you can see it's not a lot going to do here, and yet this will run, and I will run this so you can kind of get a look at that as well. So I've stopped. In order to get out of it, you have to do Control-C, and that's because each program is a separate web app, so you have to start it up separately. You can't just change apps in the middle. So what I'm going to do now is I want to run the other one, so let me do a dir again, and I'll just say, okay, Python. This is dash demo. There is one. And let me scroll up so you can see that, .py. Okay, I don't remember if I left this running, so let me just copy that in case I didn't. And I'll do it here this time. I'll just go here and say, okay. Okay, so this is very similar to before, and again, you get this cool, you can highlight the numbers, and you get all these, Plotly typical things you can extend. You can say, I want to go up. But the cool thing is, this is the reactive piece, so I have this drop down, and I say, oh, I want to see Apple, and then you get apples. Oh, okay, I want to see Coke. So I like that. Just is very simple, but it's a pretty cool demo that you can just, change things, and it reacts to the change, hence the React.js under the covers. And so it's pretty cool. The idea is it knows something changed, and there can be many different things that have to be modified because you've decided you want to change things that are maybe for one country, and there might be 3 or 4 different visuals on the page. The other thing I'm leaving out here is I'm not putting different visuals on the same page, but that's really what I was trying to go for, and you can do that, and that's going to be the next step and maybe another video. But I wanted to have multiple visuals on the same page, so it's truly like a dashboard, like a Power BI kind of thing, all with Python. Again, I'm pretty impressed with this. Deploying and things like that is the other step, and again, I'll have to look at doing that myself, and maybe I'll make a video out of that. So you're kind of on the journey with me here, but this is definitely one of those things that I really liked, so I just wanted to show it to you guys. All right, so we saw that. We saw getting started, and this link here, and I'll post a link on GitHub. You can get the slides. There's no code really here to do. I guess I can put that my code snippets, but they're available out there. But you got some pretty good documentation online here. So just go here, introduction, work your way through. Pretty much where I'm coming from. Good work up to the team at Dash that did this, or team at Plotly, because I'm impressed. It's really nice. Very cool. And again, to me, when I look at it, it makes sense. It's kind of intuitive, so that's great. It's not something you can't figure out why they're doing what they're doing. So kind of to walk you through, slides are good because you might forget what the video looked like, but again, you go to the command prompt and you just do your pips installs. And to test it, we ran Python, we went to the command prompt in Python, we typed in import dash, and we just said, okay, it worked, we didn't get errors, quit. And to run it, we then said, okay, let's switch to where our file is. So we had to download that script, and then once we had the script that is a dash script, we then were able to run it. So we said Python, run the script, and then it just really runs the web service, and you got to go. So it's very much like Jupyter, and it runs a web service, but it does not automatically kick in the browser and drop you in, which would be a nice little feature, but it doesn't do that. But you can do this, and you can just swipe that HTTP address there and paste it in. That's your local place for it. Again, so I didn't mention specifically, and I put this thing on the slide so I'd remember, it isn't really designed to work with Jupyter. I think there are things I looked online where you can integrate Dash with Jupyter. Not something I would probably try to do, only because I know Jupyter itself is a web service, and then this is a web service, a running web service, so I'm not sure how well that would work together. So it really works out better just kind of when you're ready and you want to deploy it, I would say what I intend to do is just export it as a script, take it and make it more of just a regular script as we saw, run it from PyCharm, wherever you want to test it, and then just make it an app and you can deploy it just like any other web app. We saw this like little demo. Okay, and these are some links here that are all available on Plotly, but if you couldn't find certain pieces in that area, you can do that. Oh, and I forgot to mention something really cool here too, so I will go to this gallery. The gallery shows you all kinds of I love this visual because it just shows you a lot of boxes on one page, like a Power BI kind of dashboard. But you can see all kinds of different dashboards you can do with it. Really highlights the power of this tool. So check it out. You can get the code for all that. They made it all available. So I'm very grateful for them for doing that. So first, what is Dash we talked about, and basically we now know it's a visualization, it's a dashboarding. So Plotly is good for interactive visualizations. Dash kind of puts a wrapper around that and allows you to put multiple visuals on the same page and get more power. So a true web application visualization framework. Why do you care? Well, we talked about it's free, it's powerful, it's great, it's cool. You'll be the cool nerd in town if you know all about this. Not many people do, but you will. Installing Dash is actually really easy. I like that a lot. And as you start testing, it wasn't bad either, but we walked through kind of doing that. And once you get to that point, you should just be able to dig in and go at it. And I would recommend, if you haven't selected tools for developing, I do like VS Code, and it's not just because it's Microsoft. I like PyCharm too, and if I was doing R, I like R Studio. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. I may do more things on Dash. I'm kind of jump around a bit. I also have something, the machine learning service in Azure, that I want to do more work with. But this was something I got into, had a lot of fun, and I thought, hey, I want to share this with people. So hope you liked it, and yeah, until we talk again, thank you.